Welcome back to the Sentinel series. In this installment, we are tackling probably the most critical piece of any serious cloud deployment, the Google Cloud Landing Zone. Look, this isn't just about initial setup. This is about building a truly modular foundation that's designed for massive scale. It's about making sure your cloud environment is ready for, well, anything you can throw at it. Let's dive in.
Okay, first things first, we have got to clear up the single biggest misconception out there right off the bat. A landing zone is not, and I repeat, is not the same thing as a physical Google Cloud zone. It's an easy mistake to make, but trust me, getting this wrong is a foundational error that can cause major headaches down the road.
So what is it then, exactly? Well, think of it as your cloud foundation. It's the architectural blueprint that lays out all your core services before you even start. It really is like city planning. You've got to lay down the power grid, the water lines, the security checkpoints. All of that has to be in place before you even think about building your first skyscraper. A landing zone isn't a place, it's the master plan. And this slide just hammers that point home. On one side, you have a Google Cloud zone. That's a physical building, a data center. It's a failure domain, meaning if that zone has a problem, the resources inside it are affected. A landing zone, on the other hand, is a completely logical blueprint. It's the foundational setup that lets you build resilient apps across many zones and regions. So one is a place to run your apps, the other is the plan to scale them. So here's our game plan. We've already tackled that big misconception. Next, we'll dig into the 4 pillars that hold this all up, talk about how to actually build this thing to scale, and then wrap up with a quick pre-flight checklist to get you started. All right, let's get into the heart of it, the foundational pillars. Every single enterprise-grade landing zone is built on these 4 non-negotiable components. Just like a city needs roads and power and laws before anyone can move in, your cloud needs this exact structure before you deploy a single workload. And here they are: identity, resource hierarchy, network design, and security controls. We're going to walk through each one because honestly, getting these right from day one is what separates a little pilot project from a secure, global, enterprise-ready platform. First up, identity. Before you can secure anything, before you can build anything, you have to definitively answer the question, who are my users and what are they allowed to do? This is job number 1. It's the absolute first step in building a cloud environment that you can actually govern and trust. Now, the best practice here is simple. Don't reinvent the wheel. You federate with the identity provider you already have, right? So whether your company uses Active Directory, Entra ID, or something like Okta, you sync those existing corporate identities directly into Google Cloud. This creates a single source of truth, enables single sign-on, and means all your existing HR processes for managing users just extend right into the cloud. Which brings us to pillar number 2, resource hierarchy. So once you know who your users are, you need a logical way to organize what they can access. And this is so much more than just making tidy folders. It's an incredibly powerful tool for applying policies, managing permissions, and tracking costs across your entire organization. And this is the standard structure right here. At the very top, you've got the organization node. That's your whole company. Underneath that, you create folders, and you'll typically use these to separate environments, like production from development. The real magic is that policies and permissions you set at the top, like on the org node, are automatically inherited all the way down. That top-down inheritance is the secret sauce for consistent governance at scale. Pillar 3 is all about network design. We've figured out who can do what and where our resources are going to live. Now we need to build the secure digital highways between them all. The goal here is to create a centralized, secure, and scalable network that every single one of your workloads can just plug right into. So let's break down the key parts of this network backbone. First, Shared VPC. This is a total game changer. It lets a central network team manage one common network, and then all your different application projects can use it securely. Next, hybrid connectivity. This is your secure bridge back to your on-prem world, using things like Cloud Interconnect or VPNs. Then you've got Cloud NAT, which is a super secure way for your internal services to talk to the internet for things like updates, without ever exposing them with a public IP. And finally, acting as the traffic cops, you have firewall rules, giving you that fine-grained control over all the traffic flowing through your network. Every piece is critical. And that brings us to our final pillar, security controls. Okay, we've built the structure, we've laid the plumbing, now it's time to add the locks, the alarms, and the security guards. This is all about creating a defense-in-depth model that's laser-focused on one thing in particular, preventing sensitive data from leaving your environment. And here are those layers of defense. It all starts with IAM policies, enforcing the principle of least privilege. Simple. Nobody gets more access than they absolutely need.
Then, we build a virtual fortress around our services with VPCs service controls. This is huge for stopping data exfiltration. At TradingMaster AI, this is exactly how we'd isolate a risky experimental trading model from our production data. Acting as the guardrails for the entire environment are organization policies. They stop you from making risky configurations in the first place. And then, watching over everything, you have your detective controls, like Security Command Center, constantly scanning for threats. It's a complete strategy.
Okay, so we've got the 4 pillars. We know what they are, but how do you actually build this foundation so that it's repeatable, consistent, and ready to scale across an entire enterprise? Let's go from the blueprint to the reality. The answer in 2 words is infrastructure as code, or IAC. This solves so many problems. It means no more clicking around in a console, no more undocumented changes, and no more what we call configuration drift, where your dev and prod environments slowly become dangerously different. When it's code, everything is repeatable, it's version controlled, and it's auditable. And when we talk about ISC for Google Cloud, the industry standard, the best practice is absolutely Terraform. Google even provides a robust Terraform provider and publishes a Terraform example foundation, which is a fantastic starting point that uses these exact principles. And this just perfectly shows the power of IAC. You define your entire foundation one time, in code, and you check it into a Git repository. And from that single source of truth, you can reliably and consistently stamp out identical but totally isolated environments. You need a new test environment? It's not a month-long project anymore. It's just a simple deployment. And that modularity is the huge long-term win. Maybe you don't need on-prem connectivity today. Well, with a well-designed landing zone built with code, adding that capability later isn't some massive rebuild. It's just a configuration change. It's a new module you deploy. Your foundation can actually evolve right along with your business needs. So, before we wrap up, let's quickly cover what you need to have ready to go before you even start designing this thing. You can think of this as the pre-flight checklist for your enterprise's launch into the cloud. There are 3 essentials. Number 1, you have to have a Google Cloud organization resource. That's the root of everything. Number 2, you need a billing account to, pay for stuff. And number 3, and this is so important, this is not a one-person job. You have to assemble a cross-functional team with people from security, networking, and operations to make sure the foundation you build works for everyone. And if there's one thing you take away from this, it's this right here. A proper landing zone is what turns a cool cloud experiment into a real, durable enterprise platform. It's that strategic step that truly enables governance, security, and growth at scale. And that leaves us with a final question for you to think about with your own cloud strategy. Are you building a temporary setup for a pilot, or are you truly laying the foundation for a global enterprise platform? Because the approach you take really, really matters. In our next explainer, we're going to get even more tactical. We're going to dive deep into Google's own Enterprise Foundation blueprint. It's literally the gold standard, the official playbook for building everything we've talked about today. So make sure you subscribe to the Sentinel series so you don't miss it. Until then, stay architected.